All right, so I'm Shane Mater. Some of you know me, some of you don't. But I've been in reptiles since I was 10. I'm 51 now. I currently don't have anything. Taking a couple years off from the reptile hobby, but I still, have always appreciated reptiles. And one of my favorite stories, I got into reptiles when I was 10, and that puts it at 1980. So anyway, my mom was very supportive, and that was great. I also encourage other parents to, support their kids, weird hobby. Kept me out of trouble, gave me something to do, and kept my focus right instead of just going out and getting in trouble. But it did lead to some interesting stories, and this one my mom still cringes about because she didn't really know anything about it until much later in life. So anyway, my mom used to take me up to the pet store, and we'd go get mice for my king snakes and corn snakes and stuff like that once a week. So I was starting to get more and more snakes at the time, and by this time I think I'm 12, maybe 13, and I got tired of having to bother my mom to drive me up to the pet store, and I was needing more and more mice, and they were getting expensive. So I found I got a number from this guy who lived locally, lived like a mile from me. So I went ahead and gave him a call and said, hey, I'd like to get some mice, and his mice were 25 cents a piece, and I'm thinking this is great. So so me and my buddy Brown, he had reptiles too. He actually had them before I did. And anyway, we ride over to this guy's house, and we go up to the door, and it's in kind of a shady neighborhood, a little questionable. But anyway, it's noon, summertime, whatever. So and I called him ahead of time. He sounded real nice. So I knock on the door, and guy answers. He says, yeah, come on in. So I walk in, introduce myself. Remember, I'm 13, 12 or 13, and so was Brown. And so anyway, this guy, has us come in, shuts the door behind us, and there's like these 5 guys circled around this table, all leaning over, and all of a sudden one guy pops his head up and he goes, us snake keepers got to keep partying, and his nose is all white. They're all snorting coke. I'd never seen cocaine in my life until that day that I went to get mice for my snakes. So, and you always hear those stories, or at least we did when we were in elementary school and middle school, about people asking you to push drugs or deal drugs. You're going to come across the pusher, and sure enough, that is what led into my pusher story. But anyway, so we walk in, and I'm astounded that they're doing that. But whatever, hey, they're adults, they know what they're doing. So anyway, the guy that actually owned the house, his name was Bernie. He was in a wheelchair from the Vietnam War. So he says, hey, the mouse room is back that way, and go help yourself to whatever mice you want, just count them up, and then, I'll charge you 25 cents a piece. He said, but the mice that are loose that are running around the house, he goes, if you catch those, they're free. Well, that's all it took. From that point on, Brown and I were just over at that guy's house like every 3 days, catching mice that were running around his house because they'd get out of the cage. He was in a wheelchair, so he wasn't fast enough to go get them. And so we would run around and catch all these mice, and sure, we had to pay for some of them, but we were still catching at least 4 or 5 each every time we went there, so those were free. So just huge bonus for us as kids. So anyway, we walked to this guy's house, and we see these guys snorting coke and everything, and they were very nice to us. They were very polite, and they offered us some cocaine, and we of course declined. Then we got our mice, and asked about a few other things here and there, little snakes and whatnot, or asked some questions about if they had anything. And he said they didn't, and but they had plenty of mice, and just come on over anytime. So from that point on, that was our mouse supplier. And there was 3 guys that were actually 4 guys that were at the house. It was Bernie is the guy in the wheelchair. He owned the house, and I don't know what Bernie's last name is, but supposedly he moved out to Arizona somewhere about 5-6 years after I initially met him. And then the other guy that was living there at the time was Bob Edwards, who I guess he passed away about 2 years ago. Another guy, Bill Schwinn, he was a big reptile guy, and he passed away about 4 years ago now. And then the last guy was Joe Gebhardt. He was also there, and he was one of the greatest snake catchers of all times. He had 20/10 vision, and he would go down the Everglades and catch all kinds of stuff and bring it back and sell it, a lot of exotic stuff that had gotten loose down there. But anyway, those are the 4 guys I remember, and I remained friends with most of them until they passed away. Although I never partook in their, their side hobby. It was a very interesting experience. And so anyway, I'm going to end the video with that, and I will talk about a couple other experiences I had with them from a lot of different things went on there. So anyway, that's the first, of my, that was my meeting of the guys that supplied us with mice when we were 13. So, thanks.